Hello, welcome to another edition of Between Two Nuts. Yay! Today I'm going to be talking to Slasher McSplitter about childhood and change. Very exciting. So I wanted to thank Slasher for joining me tonight.
Hello, how you doing?
We were talking for a while when I was setting up crap because things don't cooperate when you want them to. But we've been talking about uh, man, everything a little bit. Like mostly we were talking about Ninja Turtles to start with, but the card collecting was a big piece I think for both of us. Because we were talking about like they came out with a series for, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in general, and we were talking about the figures too. So everything to do with either the cartoon or the movie. But I guess a good question to ask you is, which one got you started on Ninja Turtles? Was it the films or was it the cartoon
Um, it was like
or the
pretty much a
comics?
combination. It was a combination of the comics and the toys.
Okay,
I, 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 I ended up buying both of those before I even saw the cartoon.
okay. So like when you, I guess, what were the first set of cards you collected? Was it for like out of the Ninja Turtle ones? Was it for the cartoon or the film? When you think
It
back.
was probably it was the movie. I don't know if I collected the cartoon ones. I'm pretty sure I just collected the movie ones.
Just the movie cards.
Yeah,
And it was that whole phase was like insane. Just with how many cards came out during that time for the film. Like I remember they had, and they all looked really good, and they all had this look to them that was like, oh yeah, I remember that scene, and then there was like behind the scenes cards that came in the series.
yeah, they did that with a lot of cards. That was cool that they used to do that.
It is a nice throwback, isn't it? You're like, oh yeah. And then I remember because Jim Henson was so heavily involved, with their, I guess their puppet studios and stuff
Uh-huh.
like that, that you saw the practical effects, and that's what made it even more, I don't know, special to me now looking back on it, was that we had like a whole nother, I don't know, experience with the cards. There was like 132 cards, I think, in that
In the
series.
first series?
So that was just for
Damn.
the original film, and then after that, they, obviously they came up with different ones over time. Oh, we have this one. What do you guys think? That kind of shit. Um, but yeah, how far did you ever finish the series for the, I guess that card series for the Ninja Turtles?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Right.
I had so many random I had random cards of movie stuff,
Mm-hmm.
wrestling cards, baseball cards, Garbage Pail Kids,
Yeah.
stuff that I didn't even remember collecting.
You're like, oh yeah, I
I,
did own that one.
yeah.
And I remember when I was getting into the Ninja Turtle cards, I did the film, and then I did the cartoon, and I had a lot of the cartoon ones. That was harder to find for a little bit. It felt like, if I
The
don't,
cartoon one?
yeah, I don't really know
Uh,
why, but it just was like, because the film came out, and I'm trying to remember now. This, I think the cards came out. Let's see, the movie ones came out in 1990, I believe, and
yeah, yeah.
as far as the
That's when the
cartoon,
movie came out, yeah.
right, and because Tops did both, they did both series. So I'm trying to
Topps
remember.
had the monopoly on all those movie
Oh
cards.
my god! And it wasn't just that; it was like Dick Tracy, all that stuff that came out. I love Dick
Yeah,
Tracy.
exactly.
But they had a huge monopoly on all that crap, and I was like, well, that'll show me, because I'd go and I'd start looking for a set, and I remember that frustration when they would start a series for like Dick Tracy, and I would try to go find more of the cards, and it would be very fucking hard to find those. It was like all of a sudden it was hard to find them. I'm like, what happened? Like, how did I miss this? Um, but yeah, I mean, I remember the movie cards and the figures, and it was one thing or another. It just seemed like it just kept
Uh,
building the
and
products
the
and stuff.
and the T-shirts and the cereals and the Hostess
Yes.
snacks and
Did you?
yeah,
How
there was
many Ninja
Ninja
Turtle T-shirts
Ninja
did you
Turtle
own?
Mania. Oh, I probably had a couple.
I think
I
I
probably
had
had a couple
two.
of Ninja Turtle T-shirts. Yeah.
It was. I remember like how popular it was, and the length of time that was popular. It felt like now it feels like a window, a very small window, but it went on for years.
That was from 80s into 90s, so I'd say that spans 2 decades, right?
Absolutely.
It started in the 80s
Uh huh. Absolutely.
and turned into an absolute corporate monster in the 90s.
Oh yeah. And this is the thing is like the cards. I remember I'm showing on the screen now the cartoon version of the cards and just how they looked. And, the cartoon ones, look just exactly like the cartoon. They're just screen caps of the cartoon with the green edging, the shell green edging with the red banner, I guess, lack of better words, at the bottom with the number of the card. And then, the movie ones just had movie scenes on them. But these were such a popular deal. When we were young, I was like, oh, yeah. I had too many of them. So I had him in a separate card holder. And we have talked about before, actually, when we were talking about Marvel. There was the very, very popular, Marvel cards that came out. Jeez. And once again, I think it was late 80s, early 90s, and it just kept going all the way through the 90s because they had.
Yeah, I think it was 90 when they started putting them out.
Hmm. So like they had, different like I'm showing right now like some on-screen pics of the supervillain cards, that they had from that I think series one,
Yeah.
and they have that the little yellow banner in the far right-hand corner, and it has the name on it, and then the top has its the purple banner for the supervillains, of course, and then whatever. But those were we were talking about the hunt for these cards and how we would go looking into the stores for the card sets, and we were lucky if you had I will say this, Slasher is one of the few blessed people I know personally that was able to get brand new, uh, how do you say, brand new boxed cards, like entire boxes of the Marvel cards. It was what would it was a special event that you.
It was actually the first time I was able to do that when I actually had enough money was the DC second card series,
Hmm.
and it
And
was with my confirmation money.
and it was that feel. I've never been able to have like to me that would be the most exciting thing in the world though, is to have two brand new boxes of Marvel cards never opened and to have it all to yourself without having to fight with people. So
Oh, it was yeah. I felt like you know I felt like I was John Gotti in my own house as a little kid, opening up stuff like yes, I'm the kingpin.
well, here's the thing too. When those in those boxes, that you, if you can remember this, I know this is a while ago, but do you remember if you had any holograms out of those boxes? Like
Yeah,
the holo,
yeah.
did you? How many did you get in each box? Do you remember?
From
Hmm.
those ones I don't remember. But
Right.
the first DC series, uh, I knew people who bought those ones, and they said every time you would open a box, that the first four stacked packs would be holograms, and I knew people who bought boxes of those.
Wow. And see that, and that's the thing is like the Marvel ones were the hologram ones that were in the
Yeah,
Marvel
the
suits.
holograms was kind of scarce.
Yeah. And if you got, I was lucky, but I had a group of people like you were talking about. You had your friends too, where like it's a small select group, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
you know, but you all make it like a plan. We would all get together and go buy our cards together. And one of my friends, man, he had this magic touch. He had duplicates of shit, of holograms, and certain rares, right? And he would do the trading. It was like some kind of like you were saying, gaudy shit going on. Like you're like, I'll give you three of these for that, and then we'd have to like at our schools. I didn't know a lot of people that did, especially let's be honest, but especially females at the time that did any card trading whatsoever. You know, so trying to get a hold of one of these hologram cards. I remember I had two or three. I know I didn't have four. That's too many. But it was very rare, and I ended up trading for two of those cards. Um, because I had a lot of duplicates. And you said now you completed series one of the Marvel cards. Is that right? In the second,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I think the first three, and then I gave up after three.
hmm
After three, I was like, all right, I'm gonna stop this.
it seems like it just like when you got to series three of the Marvel cards, or the Marvel Hero cards, it was just overwhelming. And it, like we talked about before, is that they had the Masterpiece series that came out and all this other shit.
The
And
X-Men series.
yeah, and I was like, dude, this is overkill. And I kind of gave up after that. I was like, this is too much to deal with right now. Um, but I didn't. You had asked me a question earlier about, like how did I get in? When did I get into Marvel? And I think that's a good question to ask you too. When did you get into Marvel? Because I think we were almost on the same page on this. Like where we started with Marvel was not with the films.
No, definitely not.
Um,
Definitely not.
would you say it was obviously
Comic
Yep.
books.
Okay. Just making sure.
Everything that has drawn me into superhero stuff from the get-go has been comic books. There's nothing.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm 40 years old, so I didn't have a Batman movie coming out every year when I was,
Right. Yeah.
you know,
What we got like our first Batman in
you know,
'89 or some shit.
there wasn't nine reboots of Spider-Man,
Yeah.
you know.
And
So everything I know of superheroes has come from reading comic books.
hmm that was the same for
I
me.
mean, there was other things after that, you know. Of course, action figures and trading cards, stuff like that. But it was, you know,
Well,
because you end up loving the characters.
correct.
But my whole thing was started. If I know a comic book character and I love them,
Right.
it's going to be from the comic books.
And a lot of the times too, it's like um, the when I got into the comics, I got really into the comics because of the cards. And
Oh,
early,
so the cards were like a gateway drug for you. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
like because I collected cards. I loved I
Yeah,
card
yeah, yeah.
collecting and shit like ever since Garbage Pail Kids when we were younger.
Uh-huh.
And I started that. I remember that was the first set of cards I ever really. I mean, baseball, yeah, but it wasn't the same because the cards,
Oh, of
garbage,
course.
the Garbage Pail Kids were so much worse, and the adults hated them. So of course we loved them, right?
Yeah.
But after that, I got very interested in card trading and stuff like that, and so like I had friends who, excuse me. I had friends who collected, let's say, baseball cards, but they would have a ton of like Garbage Pail Kids they didn't want. So I would go and get baseball cards to get the rares from them. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
so I was
Of course it does.
import export, if you will.
You gotta trade what you gotta trade for whatever, you know, to
Exactly.
complete the set.
And I did. I ended up completing the first. I think it was the first series of the Garbage Pail Kids. A friend of mine also gave me a ton of them. And
See, cards was the one thing when you really collected them. It
mhm,
was the one thing that was realistic of getting the whole set of. It's
mhm,
like if you collected any sort of toy line, there was no way you were gonna get every figure of that toy and every playset of that toy unless you were a rich kid. But like cards, they were so simple. You just go buy packs and trade them with your friends.
yep, it's true. And I think that when you get really bound and determined with the card collecting, you can easily collect an entire series. And I felt like a sense of completion with the Marvel, especially after I did Garbage Pail Kids. I was like, okay, and I know they had other series and shit, but I was like, I got bored, you know. So I was like, okay, what else can I, what else can I collect? So I started doing Marvel. I did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon. I had all of those at one point. So pissed off I don't have any of these things right now. But um, the I had that whole series with the cartoon, and of course they had other ones that came out later, but it wasn't the same. Um, and the movie, I had those, and also we were talking about those old school, what do you call them? Those,
Sticker books?
yes, the old, it was like 19. I would say Well, would you say they came out in the 1990s? Those sticker books. Um, I can't. They still make it by Panini is the name of the company. Um,
Yeah, but Topps also used to do them too.
yeah.
I remember there was Topps ones. The baseball ones I used to get were Topps, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. Like yeah, Panini was supported it, but Topps would go through them, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, to do those books and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay. But Panini did different ones for everything. Like you could go in and look for Care Bears, or you could go and look for, Ghostbusters or Barbie or Alf. Um, they did every movie that came out. They even did like Space Jam and shit.
Willow.
Willow.
I had the Willow one. Right, I remember this. I had the Willow one, and I didn't get to complete it. I didn't have. I don't think I ever got to complete a sticker book. I was able to get full sets of trading cards, but I was never able to complete one of those sticker books.
That was the hardest one to collect, was the
I think it
Willow
was.
series. Be,
Oh, oh
be,
yeah. I thought you meant sticker books in general,
oh,
but
well,
yeah,
no,
the
you're.
Willow one.
I think you're in general though. I think you're right because like a lot of the books, or at least let's say that I know I did the Teenage Mutant. I've actually almost finished that damn book, and I still couldn't. There was pieces I couldn't locate, and that was the most frustrating part of it. Was like, oh, you get so far, and they just wasn't available. So you're like, oh my god, I was this close to
Yeah,
finishing this shit, and now they're stopped selling it, or it's not available in the stores anymore. And that's why I didn't really continue with that because it was like they were really cool. It was like very different, in comparison to most things that were available. But it was just harder to collect those and finding like the complete sets. I only knew a couple, maybe two people that ever finished one of those books, and
yeah. I don't know anyone who finished those books actually.
dude, I didn't know anybody, and I was like, oh, like I had no idea. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that you didn't finish that book, and they're like, yeah, I spent like the last 6 years looking for X, Y, and Z, and never found it, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize that that was that bad. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that you couldn't find them because otherwise I would have been helping. But it's at the same time you don't know what they're looking for. But the sticker books usually came sealed with plastic, like a factory plastic, and inside there'd be maybe a bunch of loose cards, like special edition cards, and then like
And then if you got the doubles of the stickers, it's pointless for the sticker book.
exactly, and after a while you're like, oh, well, well, shit, what do I do with these? Like, how do I,
Yeah, exactly. I'm
they're
just gonna stick this on my notebook. I
like
guess that's what they wanted you to do.
right.
Like I'm gonna go to school with this baseball player on my notebook, just because
And then what? Like it's half a. It's a bit the the actual sticker's only like half of a picture,
yeah.
and you're like, oh well, that's nice. But like the cards came. I'm showing a photo right now on the screen of the like a Willow album sticker pack, right? The orange pack, and it's paper. Like so they still Panini still makes these. You can find them in like Dollar Tree and stuff like that. But they actually do still make these for films or cartoons. But this was the one I'm showing is for Willow, and it has the logo for Panini in the far left corner, and it's a papery type material. It's not like a plastic, wrapper. It's like a very cheap made paper that you just rip open, and inside you'll find these stickers. Um, but yeah, like they still make these, and I saw them in the store, and I was like, oh, look at this, and trying to get my kid hyped up, and she just like, oh, okay. Like she had never, obviously this isn't going to apply to her necessarily, but whatever. But I remember for the sticker collecting though, like they had what do you call it, Care Bears, and that was like super popular. And I just remember being like, oh, I'm gonna get this, and it's gonna be awesome. And it was harder to find it, than I thought it would be. But the Care Bear one was a popular sticker collecting one because the stickers actually could be used independently. It wasn't like the other ones for movies where you have to collect all these stickers to make one picture, if that makes
Oh, you're
sense.
talking about like on the back, if you don't take the sticker off, right? How there was the back picture when you turn it around, like you put all the stickers together but turn them upside down. I
Yes.
would make a big picture, like the Dick Tracy ones. Like
Yes.
you put all the stickers together, and it's a picture of Dick Tracy on the back of it. Yeah,
And you're like, oh god, it's going to be part of a larger picture, so it's kind of like a
yeah,
puzzle. And I was like,
yeah.
well, I saw people that would have those stickers on like a binder or some random thing, and it's only half of a picture of something. Maybe it has just one image of one character, but like it's missing like the rest of the picture. I was like, yep. But like the some of the ones for the Care Bear one is an example though. They had full portrait type, images in there. So when you're looking at the actual photos, they're like actual full portraits of the bears or certain scenes and things like that. And not all of the movie ones were set up that way because it was made on purpose for you to keep purchasing them. You know, bastards. So a lot of unfinished sticker books out there from Panini. But they still make these. They make them for baseball. I saw them for football. Also, what do you call it? Like the World Cup type shit. So they're still making them, but I don't know. Now the other thing that we were talking about earlier was not because your image on your actual profile pic is of a muscle figure.
Yes, of course it is.
And that's muscle figures were like really a popular toy, I guess, in lack of better words. Like it came in a, they have 4 packs as an example. Where
They
you,
had every number of packs. There was 4 to 26 packs.
oh yeah, 10 packs, and the 10 packs came in like these, looks like little garbage cans, and they're clear. The garbage
Yeah.
cans, 10 packs, and they had all the figures in them, and they were very small, but like you could use them for different things. I remember the first time I got them was at the, I think, girl, I was sick, had some had a surgery done on my ear when I was young, so I remember the first set I ever got was at the grocery store, and I was so fucking excited to get this 10 pack of the muscle guys. But I was like, "This is the best thing ever." But I remember that because I was like, because I had wanted them for a while, but they weren't like super. Well, they were cheap, but like when you're young, you're gonna be told no. So,
Well, it also depended if you want to get the garbage can or the 24 pack.
oh yeah, the giant packs, and
What
then
sucked about the garbage can was that you couldn't tell if you were see, going back to the whole thing with trading cards and doubles.
mhm,
If you got that garbage can with those muscle figures, there was
mhm,
a good chance you were getting doubles because you
mhm,
couldn't see everything that was in the garbage can.
right, and they had a big old series of them, and there's a lot of really cool websites that help with collecting these, but then they came in different colors. I had the flesh, and I remember the pink. Like I know I had other colors, but I think I just remember the flesh ones the most because for a while it seemed like they didn't really have multicolor for a short bit. Um,
Oh yeah, I have a shit ton of
the flesh.
the multicolored ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's weird they went through. Well, that's one way to get people to collect them, I guess, but it was crazy. But then you had did you have the muscle game, the mega match game, I guess, the
The
board
board
game?
game.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, I never used it too because no one ever, played it with me, so I just used to use it you know,
like a
as a
battleground.
battle arena.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably use it as a battleground. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, did they came with figures in that set then,
Yeah,
like
yeah, they
purple
came
and
with
green,
figures.
and
Yeah, yeah.
so they came with what, 10 figures? One, two, three, four, five. Yeah, 10 figures in the game, I guess, in purple and green, I guess.
I don't remember exactly how many came with it, but
Yeah,
it was it
I
wasn't it was like the board was a cardboard piece of crap,
right.
so maybe that's why it didn't last so long.
The figures were probably worth more than the board.
Yeah, yeah,
But I never
yeah.
even saw that game. I never saw this game. I might have seen the commercial for it. Like my memory is very like vague on it. I remember more so of like the Muscle Arena. Like they had like a little I guess
A ring, right?
yeah,
They had a ring that came with the regular figures. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, you could put your little figures in there, and it was kind of like sock 'em bop 'em type shit.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you had to put them in the notches and then just like let them, pretend like a joysticks or whatever. But yeah, I remember that commercial for that. And then they also had a muscle battling belt. And I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yes, yes, of course. Yeah.
Did you ever
Uh,
have one of those?
no,
No.
why would I,
I don't know.
it's not like I had to walk around with a muscle belt, a heavyweight muscle belt heavyweight championship of full of muscle figures that I had to store and walk around my neighborhood with. I can't say I ever felt the need to do that. But
And the way it looks is terrible. I was
yeah,
like, wow, that looks really
yes,
bad. Because you have like the
yes, it
window in the
does.
front and then little
Yeah,
connection things on the side.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's more something you set up at your house.
Right.
It ain't something. Even as a little kid, like I was like, no, you're not walking outside with that.
That moment where you're like,
If I was the kid's dad, I was like, no, no, you're gonna spill those things all over the street. No.
God. Yeah, that and it looks like that just asking to get robbed. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're wearing that shit out walking around, I don't know, man. Maybe somebody's kid did, and congratulations. I hope you didn't
He
get
got
mugged.
robbed. He got robbed for a muscle figure.
You get taken down in the street because you're.
My muscle figures. He took my belt too.
Oh no, you telling the cops this, or like we're fucking with you. They're like, you should have stayed inside. That's a horrible belt, though. I saw it. I was like, God, that's ugly. I was like, I've never even
Yeah.
seen that before. I was like, what? Oh God. But yeah, the God, those moments. I know that like there was a. This was like the heyday of like the WCW, like the WWF, WWE, stuff that comes later. But the beginning of like Wrestle, the whole Wrestle franchise, I guess, in a sense. Like you had the Wrestle superstar figures and things like that that start showing up in stores too. Did you have any of the like the WWF, I guess, or WCW
The LJN
cups?
ones, the LJN, the big rubber unmovable WWF ones. Yes, yes, I
And
had quite a bit of those.
they had like showing an ad for them from back in the day, or like they didn't move. That was the
No,
thing.
they didn't.
And
They were all posed. Everyone was posed a different way.
right, and like I remember not really wanting to get those because I loved the whole like when I was especially when I was young, like I really loved like the beginning, like the very beginning, because you had like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and Junkyard Dog and Ultimate Warrior, all those figures coming out, and I remember that they had a cartoon that was on,
Oh God.
and it was kind of like Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Something.
Rock and wrestling.
Yes.
Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling.
Yep. And it.
And you know what? That cartoon had neither rock nor wrestling.
It's
That
true.
cartoon was just nonsensical.
Hmm.
It's like you might as well watch an episode of Heathcliff because it was the same thing.
And the
It was-
animation wasn't great at all.
oh no.
It was
Oh
terrible.
no.
I was looking up
Oh.
like pictures right about that, and I was like, oh my god, like
And none of the wrestlers did their own voice. None of the wrestlers did their own voices for their characters.
right.
Not a single one of them.
And that's the stuff where you're like, oh my god. And it was, and looking back on it now, at the time as a kid, I loved it, because I was just like, oh, this is fun.
See, I didn't. I didn't.
No,
Even as a kid, I used to get like, all right, I was huge into the G.I. Joe figures, and I watched a G.I. Joe cartoon, and I was like, this is stupid. Even as a little kid, I'm not blinded by the stupidity of the cartoon. I
right.
like the toys. Same thing with He-Man. I'm in the He-Man figures.
Hmm.
See the He-Man cartoon for the first time, I was like, this is stupid.
Oh, it's terrible. Like, when you rewatch, like, when I rewatch She-Ra episodes, I'm like, you can see, like, this
Yeah.
generic, you know what I mean, scenes with her running or He-Man running. It's the same scenes, like that repeated animation, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh, this is,
exactly.
this is terrible.
The same the same wooden dialogue and the same fucking scene over and over again where it just looks like they're talking to their sword.
You remember, like, yeah, like the ones where they're tumbling or they're running, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh, yeah, I've seen that
yeah,
before with She-Ra. Then
exactly.
because they see the same. It's almost like they just superimpose She-Ra's movements off of He-Man's.
They probably did.
Yeah, because it's
They
the same
probably did.
tumble. I remember like them running and tumbling, and I'm like, this looks familiar as fuck. But I'm like, I've seen this before. I don't know where. But yeah, like the She-Ra. Oh man, that's a whole nother thing right there. But yeah, I love
Yeah,
She-Ra.
you like Shira.
Yeah,
You're big into Shira.
yeah, very much so. And you were into He-Man, but it wasn't like, would you say, were you into He-Man like it was a thing for you, or was it more like passing interest?
See, it was also weird because you had so many competing things for your interest as a kid.
It's true.
Like, it could be a He-Man figure one week. It could be a Star Wars figure the next week. It could be a wrestling figure the next week.
Hmm.
It's like
And that's true because there was a lot of
a lot of stuff to
competition.
keep your attention. Yeah, a lot of stuff to keep your attention.
And there was so many different options of toys, and it was like, honestly, I remember going through phases like water. It was like, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
I'm over it now. That's how fast
Uh-huh.
it went. And you're like, oh. But I remember like the commercials, especially when we were kids, it was nonstop. It was just like
Oh, definitely.
nonstop advertisements, nonstop. You
We
know,
were zombified as kids with those commercials.
oh yeah. And after a while, you just get used to what do you call it? Seeing all of this like constant advertisements, and after a while, you're like, I get, like you just get overkilled, I guess, lack of better words, where you're just like, okay, I've seen enough of this. Like, I've watched this a million times now, and I don't care anymore. But there were so many things competing for our attention that it was like, oh, okay. And there was
Yeah, it was
always a
hard
new
to
one.
concentrate on one thing. It was hard to actually, like, as a little kid, it's hard to keep your interest in the toy store as on one specific item.
Oh, absolutely. And I think with like the He-Man thing and the She-Ra, that She-Ra He-Man window, lack of better words, um, those those windows weren't that long. At least I don't feel like they were. I mean, I remember really loving She-Ra and being all about it, but I really can't remember it very much. Like as far as past a certain point, it seemed like it kind of like my interest just got taken away very quickly. If that makes sense. I mean, there was things I was very into and I stayed with, but She-Ra was one of those things I kept everything for a very long time, but I got done with it. I was like, yeah. Do you remember like what was it? The shit, what was the my brain just went. Oh. But okay, you were into the GI Joe figures for a while. And that's
Yeah,
you still have a lot of your figures actually. Where are these ones you've recollected over the years or are these ones that you've had?
the ones in the worst condition are the ones that were left over from childhood destruction.
Mm-hmm. And so you've been
But
recollecting some of them, I guess.
every few years or so, I go on eBay sprees.
And you just try
It,
looking them
it
up and
it's
find.
usually like a 5 year thing where like it dies down in me, and then 5 years pop up, and I'm like, I want to see the prices of these figures now.
Yeah, because there's so many of these figures, and we were talking about pricing of the figures before. They're like between $2 to $3, I guess, per figure. Is that the
From
price?
back in the day,
Yeah, I don't remember.
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember.
you'll
To me.
GI Joes
Hmm.
for GI Joes. Yeah, I think the most you would see them is like 4.99. I used to get them on the rack for 3.99 at this toy store down the block from my house when I was a kid.
Right, and I think that like when I was a kid, I don't know, they were considered to be like if because you couldn't just in some cases you couldn't just get one. Like if you were gonna get a figure, it's kind of like how
Yeah, it would
Star
kind of
Wars
be
was.
yeah, it would be kind of pointless.
Right. So my mom would be like, you're not gonna be able to get like maybe one or two figures, or you can get a doll, or you can do whatever else. Because I was into GI Joes was like here and there, like certain interests, but I was into the turtles obviously and into She-Ra. But for you, how long did you collect GI Joes?
Um, probably since around the time they came out.
Mm,
Like, not that I have any left from my original. Like I said,
right.
I can't remember the first GI Joe I bought, but or my parents bought for me, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anymore. I'm pretty sure it's
It
crumpled
does.
up plastic somewhere and some garbage dump.
Right.
But I do have some left over from being a kid, but when I went eBay crazy, I also started taking them apart
Okay.
and changing the rubber bands on them
Right. I mean,
because the rubber band is a second away from snapping
mhm.
if it's a brittle piece of rubber inside and the figure can't stand up.
Right. Absolutely. So you did a lot of
That's
like
the other thing.
repairing.
Have you ever done any restoration
Uh,
on eBay stuff that you bought? Have you ever done that?
yes. Depending on what it is, like what dolls I have, um, and on I guess cars, like certain die cast
Uh-huh.
That's more of a process, but I've restored a couple of like Hot Wheels cars in the
Huh.
past that I had. Like I was trying to restructure my old collection because I had a ridiculous amount of diecast. So, it's one of those things. Talking about diecast, we had talked about this briefly earlier. I didn't really collect micro machines. Um, you had a few, you said, but I
Yeah, I
think
had a couple of them.
for me, I just didn't really have a whole lot, if that makes any sense. Like, um, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, they're not really like the same thing. That's how I was looking at it because they were so small. These little random cars, and they had like a car wash city that was a popular
Yeah.
toy that showed on
Yeah.
TV,
Yeah.
and
And of course the guy on the commercials, of
the
course.
one who
Of
talked
course.
fast,
Yeah. Of
and
course. That guy was gonna draw you into buying those things.
oh yeah, without a doubt. And I was like, this guy, he's making money. But he was like he was like the fastest talking or at least spoken word guy in the world or something, or he had some world record he had beat back in the 80s or 90s. I can't remember. So he was doing commercials for them and for different insurance companies, but he did the micro machines ads for a long time. But the micro machines were like very small die-cast cars, and they were, to me, they were
They had
just
other stuff too. They had boats, they had planes.
right. And they were
I had the
nuts.
World War II set. I have a Predator set too.
Oh.
I have a later it was like way after they were like at the height of their popularity.
hmm
And they had a set of like vehicles and figures of Predator stuff.
Right. Like I
It's somewhere. It's somewhere here.
barely
Somewhere here in my
remember it.
house.
Like, you know what I mean? Like they had so many series that they had. Like they had like the what do you call them? Monster Truck series
Yeah, yeah.
and stuff like that. I remember those because the Bigfoot thing was really popular. Like Bigfoot, trucks and stuff like that. And
Oh, I'm sure they had 900 Jurassic Park stuff. That
yes, they did. They're like, oh well, we see a lack of dinosaurs here. But like I what do you call it? Did you collect diecast cars at all aside from micro machines or?
see, I didn't collect them, but like those are the types of things I would get for like Christmas and stuff. So
hmm
I would like hold on to them. But like when I went to the stores, I was more interested in like action figures than
Right.
anything. I was always more into characters than anything.
It's true. Like I'm more likely to go pick up certain things in the store. Like, you had GI Joes, and I was talking to you at one point. So one of the things I had looked for a while was this particular doll I had, right? Because I lost it, and I couldn't find this damn doll. And I was like, what the hell's this? I couldn't figure out her name. I was like Sparkletta, something weird. I was like, I don't know. She was hot pink, and I was trying to piece together her name, and I finally found her on eBay by accident, and they didn't know what she was. They didn't even have her name right. And I got her like super cheap, but her name's Spectra, and she was out in 1986, and Mattel made her, but she wasn't quote a Barbie. She was like outside of the Barbie family basically, but it was just like this 1980s nonsense, But she looked like a robot from the neck down. It was like this metallic, heavy duty. No, I wouldn't say heavy duty. That's a lie. Because I broke that bitch. But
It was almost like Gem meets uh Rainbow Bright.
yeah, in a way, yeah. And like her hair had sparkles. Like I remember how back then everything had fucking glitter or tinsel,
Yeah.
in her hair. And I wanted this doll so bad, so I found her, and that was one of the dolls I restored. But it took a while to find her, and because I could remember her name, I was like, I had this doll, but I had like, you know, of course, Gem. You know, that was a popular doll, and the original one I had, like she was cheap. Like I don't know why, but she was a cheap bitch, and that doll, it was on the cheaper version of Gem, which is like she was wearing like a what do you call it, purple top with hot pink bows, really obnoxious, and I snapped her neck, and it was by complete accident. Like the doll was just dressing this bitch, and I was like, oh my god. So I remember being really upset because she broke. So that was one of the few dolls I wanted. So my mom went back and got me like she actually spent money and got the better, quote, better version. But Jem was, to be honest with you, kind of a fat doll. She wasn't like, she wouldn't wear like Barbie clothes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You couldn't interchange?
No, like I swear to God, you put on a Barbie, let's say a Barbie dress on a Gem doll. She's so, she was such a big doll and thick doll that you couldn't put clothes for Barbie on her. It just looked like a tank top. If it was supposed to be a dress, like it would just come up to like her groin. You're like, what the hell? And that's if you could get it on her, you know. So you had to buy only Gem clothes, or you had to look for like, somebody made the clothes for dolls or some shit. But the Gem doll I had, the one is the one that our earrings lit up, you know, um, when you activated her back, and she had pink hair on top that was supposed to be Gem's hair, right? You technically, I don't remember if you use water to activate the pink hair. I think that's what it does, but it comes with like her ulterior, her alter ego
Yeah,
outfits,
yeah.
so you can hide it under her little beret and shit. It was so cheesy, but I loved it. But that doll was a cash cow for them. No pun intended, but goddamn.
All those gimmick dolls had that
Mm-hmm.
every time there was a gimmick on an action figure, like even if it was in like a specific line of action, like G.I. Joe had Zartan. G.I. Joe back in the day had Zartan, where you would leave him out on your windowsill in the sun and he would turn blue.
What? What is
And he
this?
can't, and
Zal
he Zartan
Zartan. It sounds familiar. I don't know why it's not clicking right now in my head.
from G.I. Joe, yeah.
That's hilarious. I'm trying to think. So he changed color in the sun.
Yeah.
That's like everything. Back then it was like they had all kinds of random shit where they're like, oh well, this'll if you put it underwater, the eyes will
Yeah,
open and
yeah.
close,
Uh-huh.
that kind of thing. Or,
Yeah, they all the gimmick toys. They had so many gimmick toys.
and it worked. It
Yeah.
worked because like me, being honest, I would be like, oh, I really want this. Because look, it does this in the sun, or it glows in the dark.
Yes, exactly.
Stupid shit like that, and you're like, oh my god, no wonder my mother was sick of me. Like
But like,
as a kid, I'm always like, oh, look at this. But they heavily commercialized stuff too, so to be fair, things are gonna happen. But like they had a set of dolls called Moon Dreamers, and they had a gimmick. They all glowed in the
wait a
dark.
second, wait a second, wait a second.
Is it clicking what it might be?
Was this one where they were like, all right, do you remember Visionaries?
A little
Did you ever
bit.
see Visionaries? Was this the girl version of
I
Visionaries?
wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Wait, what was the name of it again?
Moon Dreamers. It's one of those things where you like have to like look at it and go, wait a minute. Um, they had like they were all like, lack of better words, they were all little kids, and they lived
Okay.
in the
No,
universe in
all
a
right.
sense, and there was good guys, and there was like an evil
Okay.
witch, and I had the witch. I had because it was a gift for a birthday, and somebody gave it to me, and I remember like being ecstatic because I got like 6 or 7 of these figures, and I had them forever. I had them up until God, not that long ago. I might still have some actually, but yeah, they have like a gimmick to them. So they're all little kids dressed kind of like I guess in my opinion, a 1980s version of a 1960s outfit, and they all glow in the dark. Their hair glows in the dark. Um, their skin on some of them glow in the dark, like whether it's like an eye detail. Um, Usually it's the hair that glows in the dark, but the hair on these dolls felt funky because it glowed in the dark. So like it was stiff. So like the main baddie is like this ugly witch, and she all glows in the dark. Her skin has like a blue tint to it, but her clothes, everything has her hair definitely glows in the dark. So do her eyes. But all the other dolls too have those types of aspects. But these are all like little kids, and I actually might still have those dolls, but I had them put away. But it was one of those random things. It was a gimmick, and it totally worked. I bought them. I wanted them really bad. Somebody bought them for me, rather. And yeah. But those gimmicky things always worked. The glow in the dark was huge. The special edition Barbie crap that was out. like they had different ones for like This is when they started the Valentine's theme Barbies or springtime themed Barbies like Superstar Barbie or
Oh, they
fucking
had
Peaches and Cream.
everything.
Yep.
They had everything. They probably had Columbus Day Barbie.
I wouldn't doubt it. But they started that back, I would say 80s into 90s. It's just got worse, and ever since then it's all been downhill. But they had some really cool, dresses. Like they were usually like evening dresses and evening gowns on some of these dolls. I had like maybe two or three of them that I'd gotten for different occasions or holidays from family members or friends of the family. But I remember that, and I always thought those were really cool because Barbies were not cheap, even though
No, they
they really
the
weren't.
every figure that was over the size of a Star Wars figure or a G.I. Joe was usually pricey.
Hmm. And I don't know if you got into what was that one phase of stuff I'm thinking about? Troll dolls. Cause
No, I never got into those. Like people gave me some of them.
I
It's not like I wanted them.
like they were a thing though. I mean I mean I
Oh,
stayed
ever.
on for a while until it started getting a little creepier. Um, because you start dressing them up, and I was like, okay, we're getting a little, I don't mind it, I guess, but like they,
Someone gave me one in Desert Storm gear. I don't know. Why did someone do that?
oh wow, probably because you're, support our country, support our troops. I don't
Yeah, but
know.
I don't want a troll in Desert Storm gear.
I was like, they had some that are like clowns. I'm like, first off, trolls are already creepy by themselves. Why are you dressing them up like a clown, dude? Um, I loved them, but I didn't like all of them. Like I felt like they started having them in business suits and shit like that. I'm like, that's stupid. Um, but I know a lot of people who collected those. I collected specifically the treasure trolls, and those are the ones that had the little stone in their belly. That
Okay, did you collect what was the one? All right, because there was two versions. There was a boys version and there was a girls version, and they were both cool
of
because of all the details that they had set up in it.
I'm trying to remember.
Um, was it Mighty Max? Mighty Max is a little like pocket thing. Like there was different play sets, but
Oh,
you bought the play set and you open it up and there's a bunch of little figures inside that you
oh,
have.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I know what you're
And
talking
the
about.
girls' version was Polly Pocket, right?
Yes. Yep, yep.
Yeah.
I
See,
remember that. There was
those were those are
Mighty.
both those are both cool because either way you get like a whole universe that you know.
It in
But
the
they were different play sets, right?
Yes, they came in a. I actually just found some pictures of that, which I'm gonna try to post here while we're talking about it, because they were like pocket sized,
Yeah.
and you could open them up.
Little tiny figures.
Yes, and I mean it was. They still make Polly Pocket. I shit you not.
They do,
Yes, they do. And it's gonna look different. Obviously, it's not gonna be as small, but like because the figures actually do more stuff
but
now.
not Mighty Max.
Not Mighty Max. I have not seen that at all. And that's the part where I was like, oh, okay. Like I was surprised they still make a Polly Pocket. I know it had a second wind. It had like in the early 2000s or something. I don't remember right now. But Polly Pocket just got this popularity again. Like when my son was in school in the mid early to mid 2000s, there were kids that were playing, girls were playing with like Polly Pocket, and I'm showing the image of like what Mighty Max is and Polly Pocket's on the left side, which is like it looks like a compact, or a heart, and then you have
Yeah.
Mighty Max, and he had like dungeons or snakes, skulls, and you could open them up, and it was like this mini little like theater with like different like baddies inside. Where this one shows a scorpion, and it has like a dungeon with a rope going across from like the snake's mouth,
Like you could almost make a board game out of it.
Yes. And the figures are like super small. It's really hard to see Mighty Max there in front of the scorpion, but like they're super. I don't know, man. Not even I don't know how big that. What would you say would be the inch on that? I don't even know. They're so
Yeah,
small.
they're you know
They're less than the size of a dime, almost. Almost.
the, the muscle figures are
Yeah.
are like hulking over those things.
Oh, absolutely. Like these are like really small sets, but yeah, I remember Mighty Max. I didn't. It feels like Polly unfortunately just got more she longevity than Mighty Max did, unfortunately. But yeah, those figures were very popular, and there was a lot of different things that came out of that time. I guess when it came to the toys, and I guess my question is that how do you feel about the toys now versus the toys that we had then? I know they're trying to kind of like replicate a lot of the shit we had as kids, but I mean, what do you feel like the changes have been when it comes to the toy market, I guess, in aspect? I mean, there's different parts to it now than there used to be, but what do you think, like, what do you think I guess, for better or for worse, what are some of the things that you've seen that are like, oh, or, oh, that's not too bad?
Well, if you go into any store that has a toy aisle, no matter what store it is that has a toy aisle, the toy aisle sucks.
Mm-hmm. It
It's
does.
usually not filled up. Like like there was toy. It's like it used to go into like say like the corner store with your parents back in the day, and there would be toys, and
Right. I mean, it,
and
it seemed like it was much fuller.
but their toy aisles have like the same five Catwoman figure or
Right.
whatever like Batman figure over and over again,
Right.
and it's not like it used to be. Like when you would go to a store back in the day and there would be new figures. It would be new figure day. They don't do that anymore, I guess.
No, they really don't. And it's sad in a lot of ways because you're like, oh, okay. And I know what you mean. Like, when you go to the stores now, like, example, I just went, I'll go, every time I go anywhere, if they have a toy section, I'll go walk through just to see what's going on and like what toys are there. And sometimes obviously, I'll take the kids too to kind of screen them to see what interests they have and things like that for future reasons. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Christmas and shit. But um, they just don't seem to have shit. I mean, everything is very generic looking. Like they go through phases where like they'll have some really cool stuff, but it's like really expensive for something
Yeah,
that's
okay, yeah. All right, there you go. There's one thing I saw
hmm prices.
with the Marvel figures.
Yeah,
These newer Marvel figures, right?
right.
Where it's like they're like $20+
Yeah, like Marvel Legends, I guess. In the black
Yeah,
box or whatever. Um,
yeah.
they.
And if you want to have more than one figure,
Oh God.
eh,
And Star
yeah,
Wars did the same thing with some of their figures. Like I know that they're getting rid of them at a lot of the WalMarts and Targets. Like you're seeing like this clearancing in quotes, and they're not really clearance prices. I noticed on those figures, like it's still high. So like marked, like the original. I don't even want to know what the original price is if they're trying to still sell it for $15. You know, I'm like, fuck Kylo Ren. Like I'm not gonna spend like almost $20 on a figure. You know, uh, and not that's it's not even that these figures aren't even that I would say top tier quality. That's the thing I've noticed. Like they've gotten like some of them, yes, I'll pay if they're worth something to me. But like I remember the figures, not all figures, but I'd say certain ones they did well in the 90s, or I would say late 80s, we'll say 80s into 90s generally. There would be some really well done, like I would say the GI Joes had their moments, but overall they had some very quality figures, like as far as detail goes and maybe clothing pieces, there seemed to be more detail to those things. Whereas now a lot of the figures just look like they're thrown together to make them look like they're good quality, but they're just shit.
yeah.
It's
And
really
also,
bad.
I think Star Wars, I think might be my if Star Wars and GI Joe, I think are the first action figures where I was like, okay, I actually want to get involved in buying action figures and collecting action figures.
Hmm. Like
I have a lot of I ended up going eBay crazy and getting a lot of the 80s Star Wars
Yeah,
figures. That
I remember those like really distinctly. Like, cause I got like the first figure I got for Star Wars was Darth Vader, and
Oh, you had Darth Vader?
yeah, and he had like the plastic.
Damn,
He
I
had the
never had.
plastic
Yeah, he had the
coat.
plastic cape.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
and he had the
I'm sorry,
but
go ahead.
his lightsaber is in his hand, right?
Yeah,
It's
and
like
you just you
that.
take
Yeah.
the lever and you push it up, and it goes
Yeah.
through his hand. And look, I mean, honestly, for something so simplistic, it looked badass. It really did, and I had that figure forever. Like I remember, like the lightsaber. I mean, by the time I was done with it, I played with that thing until it was dead. But I remember that was the first figure I got because it was rare to find a Darth Vader figure, and I remember I was at Toys R Us and they had a bunch of them there, and I wanted Darth Vader, and they had it. It was only like one at that time, only one of them
Huh.
left.
Huh.
I remember that experience with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures too, like how rare it was to get them in stock. So like when you go to Toys R Us, I'd be like, okay, I was looking for Raphael. I was looking for. I got Baxter Stockman. That was the first. I was gifted Shredder, and he looked like shit. But Baxter Stockman was the one that I got first. As far as
Yeah,
me
that
buying him.
Shredder figure sucked.
Yeah, and that was the first. We're talking first series Shredder where he was looking kind of sick, and
Hunchbacked.
yeah, and Baxter looked awesome. All the details on him
Yeah.
looked really, really sleek. And I had Raphael and I had Michelangelo, and they had different. I had an action version of Michelangelo and Raphael too. And I didn't, and it was hard to find those figures. But I remember Star Wars. That experience was like much harder to find those figures because people were, just you would have to go the day they're stocking to find certain figures, or if you're trying to collect them all, which a lot of people were. Or just certain kids wanted certain figures for whatever reason. Um, but yeah, the figure market now, it's like $20 for a figure, and then like,
Yeah.
did you see the packaging they're putting on the new?
Collect them all.
Oh God, did you see the new packaging on the Star Wars figures now? They're like little,
No.
they're little tubes, and they're short. They're not in like the packaging, like they're not even a throwback packaging or anything remotely close, but it's like a plastic tube. I don't know how to explain this. I know that people posted photos of them on Twitter, but anyway, it's like a little mini figure, just like you would in the package, and it's in a tube that sits up like I don't know. It's not even that big. It's very short. It's about the size of the figure, and they I don't know how to explain it, but it looks like something they would sell in like a gas station, and it looks like shit. It looks terrible, the repackaging of it. And the figures don't look that great. They look terrible. And I'm like, wow. Like, I mean, it's even going like beyond the 80s standard of like shit. It just looks terrible. I wouldn't buy any of those
Yeah,
for my
because it's
kids.
like those original Star Wars figures, like they weren't made the greatest, like
Right.
and in the greatest sort of form type of way, but they were still, those still hold up the test of time. If you look at those, the
Absolutely.
original Kenner ones, the original Kenner ones.
Right. I mean, they looked. I mean, the original Kenner ones had character to them, even though they weren't like okay top shelf quality. They were still, for action figures, they were pretty good. And there was
And you
one,
know what? That Jabba the Hutt playset is top notch. The Jabba the
yeah,
Hutt playset, that's the best. That's one of the best things. That's like so detailed about it.
yeah. They had a really nice selection of play sets for Star Wars and Return of the Jedi. I remember like
Yeah, a
Empire
lot of nice playsets.
Empire had some nice sets, but it was when they went to Return of the Jedi that like they had the Ewok shit. They had the villages. You know what I mean? They had the Jabba the Hutt, obviously, and everything just had more detail. And there was like all types of like one of my friends had the Jabba the Hutt one, and there was you could or not she, excuse me, his mother got him uh, the Jabba the Hutt set, and then he had some Ewok village playset thing, and it was just the detail on both was pretty damn
Yeah,
good. I was
yeah.
surprised. So like the toys that came before with like Empire, you had a few, but it wasn't the same.
Nah.
You know, I would say Return of the Jedi, you just saw the bigger sets that were like really much more detailed and a lot more interactive, I guess. Um, as far as quality goes and playability, like you could replay with that shit over and over again and not get bored with it at all. Um, but yeah, like the sets they have now, I don't see it the same at
Well,
all.
even the Millennium Falcon was kind of it was a vehicle, but it was also kind of a set on its
Mm-hmm.
own because you
Yeah.
got to put a bunch of people in it.
Yeah. See, I think that's the kind of like the vehicles. Like that was to me the I like shit like that. Like I love the ships and different like the land speeders and stuff like that. Like I was more interested in the vehicles, and for a while like they had the with Luke they had the land speeder and Luke and all that stuff, and I thought that was cool. But it just seemed like Return of the Jedi took all these other play sets and went, let's see how much we can outdo
Yeah.
them. And I remember that sticking out, so I agree. The Jabba the Hutt playset by far was way more detailed, and I was like, okay, well, I haven't been living. Because I remember I'd never, I had seen it on TV, but I didn't know if I wanted to, ask for it or anything like that. My friend got it. I was like, oh, that's badass.
See, I had it as a kid and lost it because, you know,
Mm.
childhood destruction. And then I ended up going eBay crazy a decade later or so.
Did you get it?
Yeah,
That's
I'm missing
awesome.
like one part of it.
Well, you never
The
know
pa-
where it'll pop. I mean, honestly, what I do is I go thrift storing a lot, and I'm always looking for pieces. So if I see anything that even you're like, what you have to let me know what piece you're looking for, and if I see it, I'll pick it up.
the-
Because you never know. I'm not even kidding. Like I've picked up figurines and like like the some thrift
that's
stores.
another thing. These older action figures, some of their minor parts, some of their minor parts, like say like there's a sword on some character in some random action figure line. That sword could be worth up to like 60 or
Yep,
$70 just because it might have been thrown away somewhere and there's not many left.
it's so ridiculous. Because you're like, okay, so like I remember I was helping one of my friends. He was this was a while ago. Keep in mind, it's like I want to say like early 2000s, and he was a toy collector, had been since he was a kid, and he's like looking for I can't remember. He gave me a list of things he was looking for because I told him I said just tell me what you're looking for, and if I see it, I'll pick it up, right? And it was the front grill of I want to say it was a front grill to some uh, Jeep set. He had some action set. I think it was for GI Joe, and it was the front end of one of the Jeeps he was trying to replace, and because the other one was really fucked up when he got it was all cracked up and broken, and found it. I found it. I found basically another Jeep, but it was most of it was damaged, but there was a lot of pieces in there that could be reused. So I was like, well, screw it, $2, dude. Okay, you know, because I usually check the bottom of the products.
Really?
Yeah, dude,
Two
two
bucks?
bucks, and because they don't know what they have. Because when I pick up, a lot of these places don't. Like you can tell what thrift stores know what they have and which ones don't. Or if they, because a lot of people like the thrift stores will screen stuff to a point, but it's mostly going to be antiques and shit like that. They're not going to really, or if like complete toys, like they don't want to mess too much with like the smaller toys that are just like pieces of, because they get dozens of these. Like people empty out an attic, and just donate
Yeah.
shit. So like what they do is they'll put all these like more than a few of the thrift stores around me and also places I've been outside of here. They'll take all these little random toys, even if it's Jeeps and stuff like that, throw them into bags with a bunch of other crap and charge you like $1.99, maybe $3 or $4, depends on what's in there with it. And I've got it for him for $2, dude. I was like, done. So I just sent him the whole Jeep, sent it over to him. I was like, here, whole Jeep, like you can take and choose whatever you want and just keep the spare parts or sell them, whatever you want to do. I don't give a shit. And so he actually was able to rebuild the Jeep, get it back to the original, basically the original Jeep appearance and everything, and looked really good. But you know, you never know what you're gonna find at a thrift store. I've found uh, action figures shoved together, them not knowing that they were figures that were, you know, uh, valued, even if it's not the kind of value that like standard person is interested in. They would throw them together with a bunch of shit, and I was like, I'd go through these bags and just look to see what's in there if I saw an action figure or some rare, figure. The other thing I collected, I don't know if you did, is Smurfs. I don't know,
My sister did. She
like the
did.
figures.
Yeah.
Okay, I did
I
too.
thought those were cool though.
Yeah, I mean they're not. They were, they're made by what do you call it? I want to say it's a Swiss company, and I know that's incorrect. But they would make these very high quality. They're still around too. But they made a lot of the Smurf figurines, and they make very
Wasn't Smurfs LJN?
LJN. Yeah,
Didn't LJN make those?
they're there was a company that picked it up, and I'm trying to remember the name of it because I bought figures from them again, and I can't pronounce their name to save my life. And
Oh no, all right. It
some
wasn't LJN.
Yeah, it was this Swiss company, and I'm trying to remember the name of. Let's see, hold on. Now my brain is because company uh who made them. Okay, I can't pronounce it, so if I slaughter the name, it's so be it. It's called Schleck. Schleck? Sure. Um, but the company still makes figures to this day. So like not just Smurfs. I mean, I bought like some figures for like my eldest because he got into like, you know, dragons for a long time when he was young, and as he got older, he still has the figures because they're like some of the best. I'll show you actually. I could probably screen share it. Um, see if I can do this.
LJN also made some really cool Dungeons and Dragons figures in the 80s.
Hmm. I'm gonna see here if
Did
I
you
can.
ever see any of those?
Yes, I did. This is the company right here. Is this if I can pull up and move around things. Okay, this I can't pronounce this. Schleck, whatever. But they made the original Smurfs technically, and see they're still making them now. This is all the newer ones, but they made the original sets also, and they're actually the original Smurfs like your sister collected and I collected. Those go for quite a bit, but they still make some of the best looking figures as far as high quality figures for plastics. Um, like I see them in the store. They used to sell these at Toys R Us, and you can actually get these on Amazon pretty cheaply. But look at the detail on this shit. I don't know if you can see that,
Yeah.
but the detail on these figures is not a joke. I mean, I was like, oh shit, because I bought dragons. I don't know. We'll see if they have dragons on their website. Hopefully they do, even if it's not in stock. Oh, okay, cool. They have some, but they do like a lot of mythical animals. They'll do real ones and stuff like that. But here's one of the. They're look at that shit.
That, yeah.
And they're big, dude. They're not small. Look how big these are. This kid, he's like, oh, I'm gonna kill everybody. But but like but these dragons are huge, and I purchased a few for my son, and they were badass, and their quality is like it's worth the price on some of these. Sometimes you luck out and get them for like I don't know $6-8, but they usually go for about $14 and shit to 18, depending on what you know specifically you're looking for. Lack of better words. But yeah, it's it's to me it's crazy because they really do put a lot of effort into these figures, and I'm like, well, okay. But they made the Smurfs.
They really do. Did you see those? You've seen those NECA figures?
Yes, that blows my mind a little
Like,
bit.
eh, have you seen the Rocky 4 NECA figures?
No, oh God, should I?
Where it's Rocky and Drago,
No, I have not. Now I gotta look it up.
and there's different interchangeable heads, and some of them is Rocky getting punched in the face and the blood flying out of his face.
Oh God, I'm afraid to ask. Okay, so I'm looking. I'm gonna pull these up. Okay, so oh my God. All right. How do I spell the first? I just want to make sure I spelled it correctly. So I'm looking at the right
What?
figures. The company. Is it
Uh, NECA.
CA? Okay. I got a little zealous with the C's. Okay. Oh my God. I haven't seen these before. Oh no, I'm gonna screen share. Hold on. I didn't know they made these. That's I. This is what happens. This is what happens when you don't go on the internet for a little while. Stuff like this pops off. Like so, wow. When did these come out? Do you have any idea?
A few years ago, I don't know how many years ago, but they're
Eh,
not brand new.
oh my god, dude! Look at that. I mean, the detail is the 40th anniversary. Okay. I mean, that's pretty. That's a big size figure. Oh, they got. Oh, okay. They got the Rocky 3 in there too.
But did you look up the interchangeable,
Oh no.
like where is Rocky actually getting punched in the face and blood is flying out of his face?
Oh no. I have. Oh wait, is this it? I think this might be it. Um, somebody else's video with it, but it has him. Oh, here's one. Where he's getting punched. Oh my god. I think the video one and the blood coming out of his face. That's hilarious. So the interchangeable faces are all set up. Oh my god. They have him with the flag, and they have him with the.
Yeah,
Oh my.
yeah, yeah.
Oh.
They have with the flag that you that you
There you
he
go.
wears like a cape. Yeah.
There you go. There he is right there with the blood coming out of his face. What the fuck? This is great. Who did this? Oh, like who at NECA said, "Oh, I have this really great idea." And they're gonna sell. Of course, these are probably selling well, to some extent at least. That's hilarious. I've never seen that before. Out of control. I like the interchangeable faces
Yeah,
a lot.
a lot of the figures these days do that, which I think, all right, if you're gonna charge $22 for a figure, at least that's cool that
Yeah, because I mean,
you could change the figure up, you
and
know.
these figures look. I mean, the detail on here on Apollo Creed. I mean, that's a lot of detail. I mean, I approve of that. Like, I like the
Yeah, I
idea.
like how you could change it up and make it look like they've gone through rounds. Like
Detail. Mr. T.
you you have regular starting the match Rocky, and then you have getting punched in the face Rocky.
The fact that I love that idea of it though, because I mean, with the figures you have so many options now that I'm surprised it took this long. I mean, this is all obviously Japanese know what they're doing. I'm just saying with a lot of their figures, especially interchangeable. Like my son, middle son, really wanted the Sonic with the interchangeable faces, and his hands pop in and out like with different items or maybe a ring or whatever. These things are expensive too, so it's like I try to find like the deals on these things, or we have local guys that we go and see for certain figures, you know, generally. But it's hard to find some of these because you're like, oh, well, shit, do I really need this? But yeah, very, in my opinion, very impressive as far as the quality goes for sure. You know, you never know with some of these figures too, like what's gonna sell, what's not. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of several like oh god, there's so many brands that I've liked, but they've been around a long time. So it's like okay, but I would say like we have better figure quality in some things, but as far as just going into a toy store, like you were saying, just going in and looking at the average figures that you see on a shelf, you're not going to get that quality anymore. Not even remotely, like just even them looking like who they're supposed to look like. Like I've collected all of the Princess Leia special edition ones that came out. Like they had the throwback. Do you know GameStop had that thing where they were selling the Star Wars figures with the throwback? Like I think it was their 20th anniversary series thing they did, where the box looks like pretty much like the old school Star Wars figure set you would buy in a store, except it was for the 20th. But they released all these figures in that boxing, and they only did it for like a certain window, and there was pre-orders and shit. Did you remember hearing or seeing about that?
No, no.
Yeah, well, they don't. They're not like, to be completely honest, is that if you're looking for the boxing and you're not going to take them out of the box itself, don't buy it for the figure. because a figure is pretty much generically the same figure that you're going to see. This is what Disney did. The same exact generic figure that you saw in the other two, like the General Leia, and also the Black Series General Leia, and then the Black Series
Yeah.
regular Princess Leia with her white dress on. It's the same figure in my opinion. Well, except for aged. Let's say General Leia is going to look older, but I would say it's almost the exact same figure for the other two, though. It's the same thing. They just put it in different boxing. So I got it. Somebody gifted to me. So that's why I have like basically the black box of Leia with the white dress on that matches the special edition, and then the General was a gift too. Somebody got me because I told myself, if you see General Leia, pick her up for me. Otherwise, I don't really give a shit. Um, I call that college fund. No kidding. I have high expectations of Disney, and that isn't going to happen. Maybe I'll buy a Snickers bar with it. We'll find out. You know. But they're really the figures weren't that great. I do like the only thing I haven't been successful at collecting are the Jawas. They had a Jawa figurine that they released, and I did not get it, so that sucked. I like the little Jawa bastards. Um, I do them and the
No, I like
Tusken
the
Raiders.
Jawas too. I like the Jawas too.
I like the Jawas and the Tusken Raider Sand People. They're my favorite. And I like all that. I like that Star Wars, the New Hope, the
I
best.
like the Ewoks. Fuck what anyone says. I like the
They're
Ewoks.
not that bad. I think they're,
I like the fucking Ewoks, man.
even though they look like Shih Tzus and shit, they're okay. Those dogs. They look like,
They'll eat your fucking body and leave you in the fucking forest.
right? They're like, oh, yeah, we're cute and innocent, and then we're gonna like
They'll hit you
cannibal.
with they'll drop a boulder on you and they'll be like, "Yeah, we're teddy bears, but we just murdered the shit out of you."
They're gonna honey roast your corpse. That's what's gonna happen.
Exactly, and make a happy moment out of it.
It's true. But yeah, like I was trying to collect those, and I
They got skulls all over that fucking forest.
it's true. Well, wouldn't that be a sign? You're like walking around, all of a sudden you see little skulls, and these teddy bears are spawning with their crazy like teeth. Like no, you know, there's something about these Shih Tzus I don't like.
Little savages.
Dude. And they're like, oh, aren't they cute? Yeah, they're real cute until they get older. It's just like dinosaurs.
I never had any of the Ewok figures either. I never had any of those
I
figures.
didn't either, actually. I never got those. I don't know if they weren't
Did you
available.
have any of the old school ones, like
The oh
the original ones, the original Kenner ones?
yes, I think I know I had at least one. Um, I don't remember playing it with it a whole lot. I don't remember. It was okay. I think I had like one of the smaller ones that came out, and I don't remember what character it was because it wasn't Wicket. It was some other random fucking. You know how they just randomly.
Yeah, they had like three different Ewoks
Yeah,
or four different Ewoks.
it wasn't like the Elder. I know it was one of the younger ones, and it wasn't Wicket. But it was smaller, and it was okay. I mean, I was content with them. I didn't want to collect them. I remember that because I was like, like it wasn't a thing. I liked. I thought they were kind of cute, but they weren't really like on my list to pick up. I was like looking more for like the main characters, like Luke in his black, looking looking like he's a badass outfit. I wanted to get that one because that's the Ultimate Warrior Luke. I never got that one because it
Oh,
was
the last one, you mean?
yes, the one that mattered. Yes, I'm an asshole, but it's true. As far as all the recent films go, I'd say that was the last one.
Oh no, they also had the Stormtrooper one, right? They had the
Yes,
one with him with the Stormtrooper helmet.
and then they had the one where he
Yeah,
was
that
on
was cool.
Hoth.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean they've released that again. I wish they would.
Oh, of course they did.
With him on his little whatever the hell I forgot the name of it. Um,
Because they wanna forget the old characters, but they want to keep letting us know about the old characters.
right. They're like, look, look, we're the same, but we're not because we don't have licensing. That kind of thing. Like we can't broadcast these. We can't broadcast the first, excuse me, like the fourth, fifth, and sixth films because, well, Turner has those. So they keep trying to like they aren't gonna have anything new or not new. I'm sorry, nothing from the original in the new parks for a while until they because they don't own the fucking rights to all of it per se. You know, at least not the films. They want to. It's like Disney's become a psycho, man. They keep
Mm.
ruining shit. I don't know. Oh, this is another thing. Really quick. I also collect. Remember the video game from Super Nintendo, the Lemmings game.
Yeah.
Like I collect the figures or whatever the hell I can find for that game. And I had picked up a figure like last year at. I went into I forgot what store I was in, and I went in and they had these figures and they're from Japan, and they made like they're not going to make any more yet. They're not that big, maybe 5 inches big, maybe I don't even think it's that tall. But they had a Lemmings one with the umbrella and him floating, and I was like, oh my god, I must own all of these. They only have that one from that particular company, but I collect those, and those are harder to find. I'm like, Jesus. So it's like a constant finding little things, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'll pick this up. But and is there like certain things? This is I guess to wind it down a little bit. Are there certain things that like you look for that it's like hard to find toys or collectibles or things from your childhood that you're like, man, I wish I could find that.
You mean number one overall?
Oh wow. Okay. Well, if there's a list, go for the list. But I mean, I'd say as far as like certain things that you really are having a hard time locating, if that makes sense.
Well, it's not even that because it's not like I have a lot of more collectible space,
You're like, I have to
but
cut myself off.
because I already do have a huge collection of stuff, and I don't want to have all of it.
So when you look in your collection, what is your top? Let's say let's say your top. I'll just say top 10. Top 10 stuff that you collect that you have an immense amount of stuff, or you have let's say a great deal of in your collection. Like as far as
When it comes to anything, you mean?
yes, absolutely.
Whether it's Dale Earnhardt commemorative plates or um,
Well, let's say toys or franchises.
uh, uh, toys. The My favorite toy line was DC Superpowers from the 80s.
Oh wow, okay. So you have a lot of like I would say. Well, what do you have of the collection from that?
Well, it was probably like about two of eBay craziness in my lifetime.
Right?
I had three bouts of eBay craziness in my lifetime. That
Mhm.
spanned about 15 years.
So you managed to recollect like a lot of these pieces or collect them for the first
That
time.
was part of it. Yeah, that was part of it. It was awesome. It was like, DC characters, but like they all had like actions. You like squeeze Superman's arms, and he does the stupid
Right.
double punch. Yeah,
So you had the Marvel superpowers type collection. And then you have your GI Joes, which how many figures do you think that you have if you were to sit here and go, "Oh, well, I think it's around this number."
you mean figures in general?
Yeah.
It might be a pathetic amount
Oh, okay.
if I admit to it right now. It might
Okay.
be a pathetic sounding amount.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, because sometimes like, oh, I collect this. You're like, well, I have this, and you're like, oh, oh, okay. Well, you're a collector. I am apparently a novice. You know.
Well, I don't know either way because I have a lot of action figures. I have a shit ton of action figures.
So, what other action figures do you have then, as far as collection?
I still have those WWF. Uh,
The superstars,
yeah,
the ones
I,
that don't
I,
move.
yeah, exactly. I have the ring, but the ring is destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Well, to be fair, the ring wasn't really like made to last, in my opinion. Um, so do you have any of your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle characters or figures still?
Yeah, I have some of them left, but I
Okay.
didn't collect them as much as my friends did.
Mm.
My friends, my friends were the ones who like, we trade even trading toys just to loan to people.
Mhm.
You ever did that with your friends back in the
Yes.
day? Like,
Like
yeah.
McDonald's toys, certain ones. Like I had a friend that was collecting all of certain
You know what?
series.
Oh, those McDonald's toys, I like those.
Yeah, at one point she was collecting. Remember when McDonald's? I don't know if you remember this, but remember when McDonald's used to do around the holiday season? They would start selling like Christmas ornaments for whatever movie or Disney. It was usually
Yeah,
Disney,
yeah, yeah.
and they'd have ornaments like every year around Christmas, and people would collect them. I collected. We had a shit ton of those for a long time. Lost them. Yay, love it. But I had like in the original boxes too. So like Rescuers Down Under, Aristocats. They had. I remember those off the top, but they had a bunch, and that was one thing they also did at like McDonald's, and then Burger King. I think was the one that I think Burger King was the one that did the collectible glasses. Do you remember that?
Well, with the Garfield ones. I
Mm-hmm.
remember those Garfield
That was
ones
was
and
that
Charlie Brown
McDonald's?
ones. Those Garfield ones and Charlie Brown ones at McDonald's. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those Garfield ones too. I had like two of those or three, and then they did. I know they did puppets. I think that was Burger King. Burger King did. I think it was Burger King. They did puppets of Alf. You remember
What
that?
puppet? You
Yeah.
mean like actual puppets?
Yes.
Like a hand puppet?
Yes, they were puppets, and he on one of them it would say "kiss the cook," another one would say like he was like a surfer dude. It was so obnoxious, and I had the surfer dude and kiss the cook, and it had him dressed as like a chef, and he had like a fake mustache, and it was really cute. But they had that for like a short window of time. That's what gets you is that short, that bullshit. Oh, you have a limited time, and it was really hard to get those stupid puppets, just like the glasses. Um, I remember the
I think I had going back to trading cards. I think I had Alf trading cards.
yes,
What's wrong with me?
the trading cards was like such a. I love trading cards. Like that was one of those things that like I got excited because you get those little packs, and it was just that excitement of like, okay, it's like a surprise. That our accumulation of a surprise box now, you know. Um, but those little trading cards were like the absolute best thing ever. So then you could trade with your friends, and I didn't have a lot of friends that did marble. So like I said, I had a select group that I would trade with, or we'd bulk our money up together and buy card sets together and shit. And then just trade amongst each other on stuff. And then sometimes one of the shop owners we used to go to, he traded with us too, because he was collecting them. And
He worked there and he was doing that
hell
to
yeah,
little
dude.
kids like that.
Yep,
Kind of
shady. I know, but he was an
that's
older
kind of.
dude too. He was like,
Oh yeah, of
yeah,
course.
some old guy. It's
Scummy
like
bastard.
unsuspecting, right? Bastard. But he took our dupes. And then he'd give us new cards. So he's actually a really nice dude. Thank God for that. But he gave us cards we were looking for. In many cases, like he would have them because he would, he would buy um, a box of his own. Like what you lucky bastard, what you got to do was get that. I would jealous. You have no idea how jealous. Because that's just a magical experience of having your own box and being able to open whatever cards. And I remember I collected. It was like for a while I had to calm down because I was buying like too many card sets and I couldn't keep up. And I had those. I don't know how you kept your cards. Did you have your cards in like a book, like a baseball card type book, or did you have like those cardboard, card holders? I don't know. What did you use for your cards, or you might still be using them? I don't know.
I never had a binder for my cards. Everything I had was in boxes.
Mine too. The binders were expensive back then, because you go into those hobby shops for the cards, and you're like, oh yeah, you can get this binder, and it was like way more expensive than like cardboard. So and then you could buy the sleeves, so that wasn't too bad. But was expensive. I wish they would bring back trading cards like to the full like potential that it could be. Like if they made like I'm not even kidding. If they made a Star Wars set, not of the new shit, but of the old shit onward, I would collect that because that's how dumb I am about that shit. If it was like the original Star Wars series, I would collect it like a problem. It would be a problem.
Like even if they read just like Disney was just like, let's do this, let's make old cards, like just reborn.
Yeah, I would actually look at them. I would look at them first and then decide if I wanted to collect them. If they were just really, really, really shitty quality, I wouldn't do it. And it depends on a lot of stuff. But I mean, the reason why I like the Ninja Turtle ones is because even though they were like quote paper, they were still like I remember the Ninja Turtle the movie ones were decent quality, and it was the cartoon ones that were better quality than I expected them to be. Like they had like a gloss to them, as opposed to like paper. Where you're like shit. I don't want to bend this. I don't want to mess with it too much. But if somebody did the Star Wars, even a comic book version of the other shit. Oh, did you ever let me think here. Do you collect any Elvira shit?
No, no, I didn't.
Okay, I collect that. So not a lot. I'm still rebuilding it, but there's a new comic book series for Elvira, so I've been picking those up. And big fan
I
of
mean,
those.
I'd like to pick up the old ones.
Hmm.
I think there was the old DC ones. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was
I want to
DC.
say it was DC because I picked up a lot of those random. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, DC Comics. Yep, you're right. DC Comics made the what was it called? Elvira's House of Mystery. Ooh. um, I didn't even.
I'm always on the lookout for any 70s or 80s comic, no matter what it is.
Let's see here. They were published by Eclipse Claypool Comics under DC from 1993 to 2007, and now she's got comics out now. I've been collecting them. The new series. It's actually really well done. I'm not gonna lie. It's just called Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Who makes it? What company makes it?
Um, it's let's see here. I picked up. Where am I? I just picked it up. Dynamite Comics.
Oh, okay.
Um, I picked up the most recent one. I'm behind. I have all of them except for two because I missed I missed a couple releases and I was like, oh, but I already found them, so I'll be picking them up. But I think they're on 7 now. I think I have to look, but they come with like variant covers and all that crap. So you'll have some with her actually on the cover, and then some are just drawn. But the art's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, and the story is very Elvira. That kind of that quirky like non-PC humor. You know,
Yeah.
which is her. And I'm like, okay, great, because when I first read, it, I was like, what kind of crap's this gonna be? But it's very much like Elvira. I don't feel like I'm reading like somebody's diary. Working through their daddy issues. So it's really well done, and I've enjoyed it a lot. Like it's definitely a collection I will ensure that I collect all of. But yeah, that started. I think it was it last year, or the year before. I think I want to say it was last year, and it's a great every time I've went to go buy them, I've had to really hunt. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have to go when I know it's gonna come out. So
But you liked comic books a long time, right?
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I got
What
into
was the type
sci-fi.
what was the type of stuff that you liked when like what's the type of stuff when you were younger and you actually got into comic books? What like drew you into being a comic book fan?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, you started in comics with Marvel, right, in DC. Was that your introduction before I
More
joined?
DC than Marvel.
Okay, so what was the
More DC,
DC?
more
What was the DC characters? I guess that pulled you into comics.
Batman, Batman
Okay,
and Superman.
so that was your go-to guys. Did you only
Well,
stay
that's
in
what
that
drew me in. That's what
right
drew me in, but it's not like, what everything.
and all right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I don't fucking
there's so many of them now. It's like, oh, well, you want some variety? Not a problem. Like honestly, I got into we'll see what pulled me in. Science fiction did. I liked a lot of science fiction. I was a big reader, right? Generally, when I was a kid, when I was little, it was like Archie comics, right? Because it's your introduction is like for comics because they're in the grocery store or some of the old shit like you know that you find in grocery stores that were more prevalent. Like I think I picked up Wonder Woman and stuff like that. I got into. I will say okay. I can say I went into to the DC a little bit more so than Marvel for sure. Um, because Wonder Woman
I
was
mean, I didn't
big.
do that on purpose. I
No,
didn't like choose DC over Marvel on purpose.
right. I didn't either.
But
It's just
like, like it wasn't even like there was a certain series that was like I was like I want to collect every issue of one of the first ones, Batman and the Outsiders.
hmm
Like before even it was just regular Batman comics.
right,
Like the first team I remember as a as a comic book reader as a little kid was Batman and the Outsiders.
right. I, I think it was like Wonder Woman, and it starts when you're young, so it's like Archie, Casper the Friendly Ghost, that kind of silly shit. And then I was a big reader of science fiction. I started reading like all types of shit. But I was in the store, and I saw they had Elvira, and I was like, oh. And then I saw Ray. They had a whole series of Ray Bradbury comics, and I was like, oh my. So I ended up like getting the first one, and it was like had a dinosaur, and it was basically his stories rewritten. They came with trading cards and this cellophane bag. It was very cool, and the stories were well written. The art was pretty much what you would expect, but like I would say stepped up quite a bit. So I got into science fiction a lot more, especially like horror science fiction. Got into some graphic novels, as they, that kind of shit. Um, I also liked. I remember as a kid watching a lot of like, what do you call it, liquid television on
Yeah,
MTV,
yeah.
and so I got into like the Max and
And that was the first one with Eon Flux, right? Well, no, wait, what was Eon Flux? Liquid.
the
Eon Flux was also
yes,
Liquid Television. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
there was a
And
lot
then
of
they made it,
shows.
and then they made a regular series of Eon Flux.
Like
Okay.
because that was based on quote a comic, and I
Yeah,
didn't know that at the time, and I was like,
yeah, me
oh
neither.
shit. So then I looked it up. And one day I was in this I was in an older comic book store where I used to live in Arizona, and this is back when I was much younger, and I was like, oh, holy crap, okay. And then it just kind of clicked. I'm like, well, wait a minute, what else is here? And I started like looking to see what things I had seen on TV, or as far as like that liquid television era as an example. But like these smaller unknown type things like the Max. You remember that show, the Max?
Yeah,
That's originally a comic, and
I have the comics
love it. I love the Max. It's like
and on Oddities. If you watch Oddities and you read the comic, it's shot for shot, word for word, everything that goes on in the comics.
honestly, it's I remember the first time I watched the Max, I was like, "What the hell is this?" Like it was really left field comparison to a lot of the other animated stuff they had even available, at the
I
time.
actually like the HBO Spawn too. They should have kept up with that. The cartoon of
Mm,
Spawn on HBO. It
I
wasn't exact like the comics, but it was still good. You
okay,
never saw that one?
no, I did not.
Oh, okay.
But it was pretty good though. You were saying,
Yeah.
okay, that's to me. It's like all right, because I know people that are Spawn fans, so okay, like
Well,
either
the
it's one of those things
the
I'll sit
movie was
down.
terrible.
Yeah, of course. They're like, let's burn this shit down. Now that we've built this up. Now that we've built this up, let's go
Yeah,
ahead and burn it down,
yeah.
you know. But yeah, like I got into there was a comic I picked up a couple shit, it was last year. I'll say it was last year. I think it was or watch it was early this year. I don't remember, my memory's bad. But it was Batman and the Max crossover. And it was a comic book first edition I picked up because I just happened to be I was in there looking for Elvira, the new stuff she has out, and I happened to come into. I was just walking around looking at all the new releases because I had no choice. Because when I'm hunting, and I saw the Max on the cover with Batman, and I was like, oh my. And of course it's fun. It's a different looking Batman, obviously, very in the Max form, and it's really well
Is
done.
it drawn by the same guy?
Yes,
Same Keith? Sam
yes,
Keith?
mhm, yep. And
Okay, good to know that guy's still around.
yeah, yeah, he's still doing his thing. Actually, he's supposed to be releasing. He was saying that they were working at some point on another animated series. I don't know enough about it. It wasn't a rumor. He actually did say that they were looking. I know he did a new comic uh, for the Max, and also what do you call it? A reboot, whatever they want to call it, of the
Yeah,
former.
yeah.
So I don't.
Re whatever.
Yeah, reboot, whatever, rehash. But that one was a new story with the Max in it with Batman, and I was like, okay, because I really loved the Max. It was definitely something you don't expect, needless to say. But it looked good, and
I got sucked into Image Comics. Like Image Comics is like, oh,
mhm,
everyone's leaving Marvel.
mhm.
We're gonna start Image. And
Yeah, there was
yeah, it didn't exactly work out.
It's funny too because everyone always has these pipe dreams. I'm gonna go do this. Everybody come over here. Follow this. Like there's a few companies that I think they have decent comics for what it is, but they have like a very limited, um, like what do you call it? A limited creator base, and so they're still limited to like their stories that they're publishing or providing, and they're trying to get it off the ground, but it's not really going in the right direction because they aren't opening the door to more creators. So you get signed under like their particular branding, let's put it that way, or their label. So I don't know. I kind of pay attention to those things because inevitably you're going to see all these brand new Kickstarter type labels disappear over time. Because of that shit, where they're not planning it properly or they're having pipe dream moments. You know, you got to have some logic. You can have dreams all day, but you got to have a little bit of logic to lead it. So I don't know. I hope that there'll be more open doors. I know that people are doing their own comics through like Indiegogo and shit like that. Have you purchased any comics from any of the Kickstarters or Indiegogos of like new artists or anything?
No, no.
What's your
Every,
reason?
every because well, my comic interest these days is back issue stuff.
Right.
I don't care about any new stuff. I mean,
It really isn't.
good good for them if they want to put their stuff out, but
Right. I mean, there's like, um, I picked up a couple of comics from a couple people, but overall,
what'd you get?
well, I got Doug, what do you call it? Doug TenNaples' Bigfoot Bill, because I liked Earthworm Jim, and actually, it was really, honestly, it was worth it, absolutely worth it at the time. This is before all that drama went on with that Comicsgate shit. Um,
I mean, I like I like all their videos and stuff.
yeah, I've enjoyed their content to a point. I'd say, when it starts getting into, name
Yeah,
calling and
you know,
that shit, I
and
don't care.
personal beefs and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. After all, I'm like, you guys calm down. It's cool. I might be a nobody, but you never know who you're talking to on the internet, so you gotta be careful. Yeah. So I'm just like, okay, you guys do you. You stop being a little crazy over there. Stop getting wild.
Sometimes you'd think, right?
Right.
But no,
It's just,
whatever.
but yeah, I got Doug's Bigfoot Bill. That's really nice, honestly. It was a very nice hardback comic book. The art was, it was good. It was a kind of comic book too where I could let my kids read it and not be like paranoid it's gonna be some crazy shit. You know what I mean? I read it through though, and then I let my middle son read it. He liked it. He likes comics a lot. That's actually helped. Honestly, comics have helped because my middle son has special quote special needs. He's uh, a low functioning autistic, so he hated reading for like, oh god, he's a phenomenal reader. He reads really well, um, but he hates reading. So comics, like he loves. Well, my eldest son's been getting him on Venom. I'm like, well, don't get too crazy with Venom because your little brother is not, you know, He's not up to that point of what do you call it, carnage, if you will. No pun intended with carnage. Also another one that they're looking at, but
Oh,
he's I've picked him up comics here and there just to kind of introduce him to different things, and I can't remember a lot of the stuff I've gotten him. I know Star Wars, of course, because he was interested in Star Wars quite a bit, um, but that's helped him read. I would say comics have absolutely helped him read more. Um, and then he'll read books and stuff, but it's very few and far between. My daughter loves comics too. She's into Marvel, so I accuse the eldest son for that. So she doesn't like Captain Marvel or any of that shit.
have you ever shown them any 80s and 90s Marvel?
Yes, yes, my eldest son is collecting it now. Um, he's I was telling him about the Marvel cards, right? Because I was like, because that was my introduction to Marvel comics, indirectly. Because I was in DC land and I was also in sci-fi land, so I was doing all these other things of just off the wall stuff, and I loved horror for a while, ghost stories, that kind of stuff, more supernatural type stories. And there's some of those, comic books where they had a lot of those comic books I can't even remember. I gotta look them up basically, but they were like ghost stories that were in like compilations. So you'd have these comic books that were like different legends or ghost stories and things like that put all together into a comic. And they were really awesome. Um, so I didn't get into Marvel right away. I was in other worlds doing other things apparently. But my daughter, once I was talking about the Marvel cards with the eldest, and he was into the MCU stuff and a little DC, not much at all because the movies suck. Truth be said, but for me, I think they're trash. Um, at least the recent ones, I'll say that. But he's been picking up like he just picked up a couple of them of the classic Marvel comics that they're basically re-releasing into comic
The
books.
True Believers ones,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. So he's been
Yeah, I
picking
picked
those
up
up.
quite a few of those, and like
What do you think of them?
being nice to people is like, here you go. Well, they're a dollar piece, they're
Right,
nice little handout gifts.
right. Well, what do you think of them overall, though? Not too bad.
Well, quite a few of them. There's like ink running off on the cover of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, really?
Yeah. There's larger. I can't remember the ones he picked up. They're nicer than those. He did pick up those, but he got these much larger. They're almost like a graphic novel sized.
They've been doing that for like a year or two now, right? The
Right.
True Believers ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these bigger ones, it's a different series that they just
I
started
still
doing.
have a few left of them.
Yeah, he has.
There was a point where I was buying them up, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, this other one. I have to find out what he just bought two of them, and it was comic books of all the '90s comics in one giant volume, and it looked way better than the True Believers. And even though the True Believers were decent, he wasn't like, oh, bitching because it was $1. Also, it was really cheap here. Not but not you know expensive, but it was those big ass volumes that he had. I was like, oh. I was like, I hadn't seen those before. I'm like, oh, are these new? And he's like, this one is. This isn't. This has been out a bit, but they're very nice and they're put together nice. The pages are really well done. There's none of this crazy shit, but it's basically all like synopsises um, of different events. Like the last one he got was the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. Basically, the whole majority of the stories in that storyline that led up to everything that goes on there without going into everything. So he got that, and he has a couple other ones. But he's been collecting more current stuff like Venom, the Carnage series, stuff like that. That's more recent. Every now and then he picks up a rare one he'll find by accident because somebody was hiding. You know when people hide shit in a store? They're like, oh, I know, I'll put this over here. I always look for your shit, people. So if you're out there,
That still works.
yes, people still do it, and I still find them. I'm like, because I'll look, you know.
I haven't seen that work since my action figure hunting days when I was a kid in the stores.
People are still hiding shit. Like, it's not always in the same place, obviously, but because I don't go for hours when I go somewhere, but I'll just go to certain sections and then I'll look
I mean,
around it.
I'm saying when I was a kid, I'd spend sometimes up to an hour in the store if I was by myself, because I had a toy store like 2 blocks down from me.
Right. And like honestly, like the people are still doing that shit. Like, um, what is it? They this has happened more frequently than I can remember. People are still taking like whether it's figurines and they're hiding them in different sections in the same aisle but in a different section that's tucked way the fuck back because they don't think people are gonna look. I look. Um, and I found shit that way that people were tucking away to hide. And usually figures, and then the comics, they move them around in the same area, but it's usually tucked off into a weird, you know, behind something. And I found stuff like that. Like I found one of the last, at the time, one of the last Elvira ones that way because it was completely adjacent. Somebody had hidden it. It was obviously had hidden it because of where it was at. It didn't make any sense. Um, but I found a lot of things. People still do it. I'm like, okay. Like I don't hide. I won't hide shit. I haven't hidden something in a store so I can go back and get it later in like years. Usually I'm like, well, if I can't get it now, I'm not getting it. You know, that kind of thing. If I come back, it's still here. I'll get it. But you know, I don't hide shit because people. I don't know. I didn't. For me, I just don't even bother doing that. But other people do it all the time. I'm that asshole that looks for your shit that you hide. But I don't know, man. But anyway, I want to thank you though for coming and hanging out. I know we were all over the place yapping and stuff. We ended up talking about all kinds of random shit, and I've had you on here forever. But
Ah, cool.
it's always nice to have throwback stuff, though. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up, and then we can chitty chat a little bit after or whatever. Um, but thanks again, Slasher, for coming on. I'll have you on again too, for sure. We can talk about other stupid shit.
As long as you don't mind having me here, that's
Not
fine.
at all, sir. It's totally chill. Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and I will talk to you later.